Hey everybody, this is Dr. John Michael Salvato, and I want to welcome you to another edition of Living Well. Today we've got a terrific show that's lined up for you guys, and we're wrapping up Women's Health Week, and we've done a number of programs this week, and we've gotten some terrific response from you guys, and so what I just want to do is I just want to reinforce that while we're ending Women's Health Week today, the information that I'm about to share with you that I'm very excited about. Because of the impact that we're seeing this having on people's health. This information is not just for women. It's not just for women and men. It's for women, men, children, even for pets, because we're talking about systems that we all have in common and the environmental stressors, the environmental factors that create and set up the body to experience disease. Today's program is focused on something called adrenal health, or adrenal fatigue. And it's something that many of us have probably never heard of, that we never even realized there was the possibility that we have this condition. Adrenal fatigue is a collection of signs and symptoms, as well as symptoms that we may not be really clear about right now, known as a syndrome. That results when the adrenal function is falling below the necessary level for optimal health. Now, most commonly, adrenal fatigue is associated with intense or prolonged stress or traumatic events. It can also arise during acute or chronic infections, especially respiratory infections like bronchitis, pneumonia, influenza. And as the name suggests, its paramount symptom is fatigue. And it's not just the kind of fatigue that if you go and take a nap or you get 8 hours of sleep are going to go away. It's not relieved by sleep at all. It's not really readily identifiable, the cause of the fatigue itself, like measles or a growth on the end of your finger. So it's one of those things that quite often doctors might not be really clear about and might first dismiss as you're not getting enough sleep, you're not eating well. You might look and act relatively normal with adrenal fatigue. You might even have no obvious signs of physical illness, but you live with a general sense of malaise or tired, grayed out feelings. Life kind of feels flat when you're suffering from adrenal fatigue. Well, most people that are experiencing adrenal fatigue often have to rely on things like coffee or colas or other stimulants in order to get going in the morning, and that doesn't really help them. And in fact, as you're going to find out as we talk to our special guest today, quite often those things can do nothing more but hurt. Adrenal fatigue can wreak absolute havoc with your life. The more serious the case, the activity of the adrenal glands becomes so diminished that you might have difficulty getting out of bed in the morning. You might have difficulty interacting with people or thinking clearly. With each increment of reduction of the adrenal function, every organ in your body is more profoundly affected because your amino acid levels get off balance, your hormones become off balance, and when those things start to happen, changes occur in your carbohydrate, your protein, your fat metabolism. You start to gain weight, you start to retain fluids if you're a female. Your electrolyte balance becomes messed up, which puts your heart at great risk and your cardiovascular system. Your sex drive drops off. There are just a number of things. When you go and work out, if you're somebody who goes to the gym, your recovery times become longer and longer and longer. You have that muscle soreness and stiffness, sort of the buildup of ammonia in the muscles. And many other alterations take place on a biochemical and cellular level in response to and to compensate for the decrease in adrenal hormones that occurs with adrenal fatigue. Now, if you're living with a severely compromised immune system like I am, which doctors were convinced was shutting down more and more every month back this summer, as many of you who know me remember, as a naturopath, I tried everything to support my adrenal function. I tried everything to rebuild the adrenal system in my body. But it wasn't until I noticed a remarkable change in the life of a friend of mine, a fellow entrepreneur, who just experienced such a dramatic difference in her life in a very short period of time, that I would discover the secret to living a healthier, more balanced life. And that's what we're going to share with you today. I thought this would be the perfect way to wrap up our Women's Health Week programming. My guest for today is R.S. Mallory from Austin, Texas. No stranger to the world of whole foods and nutrition. She grew up under the tutelage of one of our country's most respected pharmacists, one of the owners of the first Rexall drugstore, I believe it was. And his store was a place where people could turn for compounded prescriptions and natural remedies, back in the day before big corporate pharmacies. Today, she's a Silver Director in Qualification with Life Farm Global Network, which we'll tell you a little bit more about as the program continues. And I think the best way to just share with you what this product can do for you, if you suffer from fatigue, from fibromyalgia, even from fatigue from diabetic weakness, all of these things can be could have contributory factors that come from your adrenal system. So I think the best way to do this is to introduce our guest. And as we wrap up Women's Health Week, RS, would you please tell us your story? Are you there on the line?
I'm here. Hi, G. Thanks for having me today.
You bet.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Great. This is such an important topic, and thanks so much for mentioning my dad. He was good friends with Louis Liggett, and most people know the Rexall store chain, but before Rexall was actually Liggett Rexall, and my daddy was good friends with Louis Liggett, and he was an old-time pharmacologist from the 30s and 40s. That was even before the universities, by the way, had degree programs for modern-day pharmacists. And so he studied and he worked with doctors and things, and he opened up this drugstore. It was store number 1 in Newark, New Jersey, as you mentioned. And the most amazing thing for me was I was the oldest child of Dad's second family. And so when I came along was in the late 40s, Dad was still compounding, and Big Pharma had not yet gotten its foot in the door to actually, discover that they could make all these toxic medicines, and they could make them and mass produce them, and they would equate to money, because that's what all the toxins. Now, of course, I understand that there is a time and a place for medicines, so I don't want anybody to think that I am not a proponent of good medicine, well placed when you need it. But I grew up watching Dad take his mortar and pestles, and he had a bunch of them, big, little, and when the doctor would call him, many times I would hear the local doctors call Dad and say, I have a patient, I'm sending them over, they have whatever they had, and whatever ailment it was. And Dad would turn around and look at his cigar boxes. Instead of metal boxes, he had an entire wall from the bottom of the floor to the top of the ceiling, about 8 feet wide. And he would have herbs in all of those. And he knew, because he studied and he had apprenticed with other folks like himself, pharmacologists, exactly what herbs he needed to grind together. So this is how I was trained. And I watched Dad grind up herbs and make tonics or salves. I've stuffed capsules. We've made all bombs, which is different than a tonic or a salve. And his acumen, his knowledge about the interaction between these herbs and what it would do with the body set me on a path that would change my entire life and imbue it with a sense of passion that even my father really didn't even ever see. So that's really, really important. So we are today at a precipice in 2013, and what you're doing is so very important because you're enlightening people and you're educating people. And people need to know, we're not going to digress into a whole large discussion about chemicals in the foods that we eat and the foods that are grown with the fields of Monsanto and the growth hormone and the antibiotics in all different kinds of foodstuffs, whether it be vegetables or fruits or meats or poultry, or the chemicals that are in the air. But make no mistake about it that when I was growing up in the late 40s and early 50s, and then even in the 60s, the entire plane of soil and what people in the United States of America ate was what I call going back to a healthy future. So you and I are both on the same path. We are helping people go back to a healthy future by embracing and educating themselves about what they can and can't do to make sure that their body stays strong and healthy and as natural as possible. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't eat occasionally a piece of hot fudge, grandma's hot fudge cake or something like that. That's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is how to get the body functioning in modern times these days, like it did when you and I were growing up for myself, in the 40s and then the 50s and the 60s.
Exactly. Now tell me a little bit. Let's fast forward to let's say sometime last year. What was your life like? What was your energy level like? Or did you even recognize that there was an issue there?
You know, you recognized that there was an issue there before I did, and that's what good friends and family do. I had just come through about a year's worth of deaths in my family and some emotional strife. That is just normal in the case of life, but I am in my early 60s now, and I am also Peter Pan. I think of myself as ageless, and some of us do that. So when we do that, even though I pride myself on being one of those people who is very aware of what's going on in her body, slowly but surely something singular was deteriorating, and I didn't even have a pulse on it. It wasn't until you and several other people commented to me or asked, what's going on with you, that I equated something in my body, psycho-emotionally and actually physically, could be wrong. And another dear friend of mine said to me, you know, you're getting nuts. Something's very wrong with you. Now, every woman in my family had their thyroids taken out. Kind of like when I was growing up, all the kids in my generation had their tonsils out. So in my mom's generation and her sisters, they all had their thyroids taken out. See, medicine and doctors and pharmacologists and pharmacists today and the entire medical community, they're not the panacea. They don't always know the right thing to do. People have to empower themselves, and you particularly are doing a great service by doing these YouTubes and doing these series so that people can learn about what they need to do. I knew my thyroid was not wacky, but gee, one thing you didn't know was that I had gained over 20 pounds in a year's time. I didn't change what I was doing. I didn't change my eating patterns. I didn't change my exercise patterns. I didn't change stuff like that. But what did happen to me over a long period of time was I stopped sleeping. I couldn't go into a dream state. I couldn't sleep more than a few hours at a time. I woke up more tired than I ever was before. All of a sudden, I had black and purple circles under my eyes. I was depressed and didn't know it. The worst part about being depressed and emotionally distraught is that you do not recognize it. It takes somebody who cares about you to say, hey, what's going on with you? And in my case, it was somebody who introduced me to a wonderful product, and you and several other friends who said, what's going on? We noticed that something's going on. You have to do something for yourself. You have to do something to make yourself better. There's definitely something wrong. I was definitely not nice. My moods were fluctuating up and down. My eyesight was strange. My fingernails and my hair were getting thin, and my hair was falling out. And you mentioned chronic fatigue, and I will again say the depression. All of this stuff wrapped up into one great big thing. And somebody said, because I expressed that I did not think this was my thyroid, and somebody said, no, it sounds more like your adrenal glands are in a severe state of fatigue. Well, even I, with my background in wellness, and I studied with my dad for 40 years, didn't equate any of this to my adrenal glands because, frankly, I never heard of them. I mean, I know I've heard about adrenal glands, but I never particularly thought this would affect me.
Sure.
And this is part of us being aware, and everybody, no matter how smart we are, and no matter how much we think we know, we have to continue to learn, and we have to enlarge in our base of knowledge, because we just don't stay stagnant. Our bodies are in a constant state of fluctuation and momentum, and we need to know from the environmental things, from what we put into our mouths, to what's seeping in through our skin, which is the largest organ in our body, to what's affecting us, what's going on in our family, in our personal and our business lives. We have to make sure that we always have some resources so that we can continue to figure out for ourselves and be open and aware, so that if we do have to go to a physician, that we are the ones that are in charge. Let me tell you a short little vignette, because I think it's important for your viewers to finish up this series. I had an auntie who was in her middle 70s, and she had married my uncle. She took care of him well into his 90s. They were 20 years apart. And he always took a handful of vitamins every day. He was like an old-fashioned Jack LaLanne. What happened was, she did live up to her promise, and she took care of him into his 90s. And the day that he passed away and transitioned, Aunt Florence called me, and she said, I'm going home, and the first thing I'm doing is throwing away all those vitamins. And I said, please, Aunt Florence, don't throw all the vitamins away. Your body for the last 20 years has been having the support of some of these nutrients. You need them. You're 20 years older. Your diet isn't so great. Let's see what we can do to bring you down to just a couple good foundational vitamins. And she said no. And you know, it won't surprise you to know that within 6 months, her doctors had her on 6 different toxic meds, and then progressively they had her on a new one and a new one and a new one. So a year and a half later, she passed away and she transitioned, but she was taking 21 toxic medications, one after the other. Every time she took one, the doctor gave her another one, and then her kidneys, and then her liver, and then her this, and then her esophagus got burned by what she was taking, and it was a vicious circle. Now, here's an example in reverse of what people should not do.
Absolutely. You know, we really need to remember that, you know, medical science, and certainly none of us are here today. As a naturopathic physician, I have all the regard and respect for our brothers and sisters who are allopathic physicians, traditional medicine practitioners. But you know, we have to look at medical science and remember that it wasn't that long ago that medical science thought that if they found any signs of cancer, they just cut off the limb or took out the organ that was cancerous. It wasn't long ago before that when there was some kind of infection, that we would bleed somebody and put leeches on them to suck the infection out. So medical science has never been perfect, and what medical science has always been good at is sort of hands-on research. But at the further we get along, the further we come down the pike, the greater the expense that research happens. Now, if you put a couple leeches on an infection, and you may not have some dramatic side effects, long-term side effects, but if you start putting, you know, vancomycin and these toxic drugs and chemotherapy and radiation on somebody, you know, science is constantly learning from the patient's response, the patient's results, and that usually comes at the cost of the patient's lives. And so I think that was a fantastic example of what happens when somebody sort of says, and in grief can do that to us, and stress can do that to us, and so if you're watching and you find yourself in that position, that there was somebody in your life who was really healthy, really nutrition focused, and they're no longer with you, you need to understand that that fighting back by doing the opposite of what they did isn't going to help you, because they were with you for as long as they were with you, probably because they were taking such good care of themselves. RS, now let's for the folks who don't know, now you said that somebody shared this this product with you, and how long was it before you started to experience results. And then after you do that, then we're going to talk a little bit about what this product is that we've sort of been keeping people in the dark about.
Yeah, I want to do a disclaimer here. There are those of us who are so aware of our bodies. Now, I just got done saying I wasn't aware of the fact that I was emotionally up and down, and sometimes I wasn't a nice person. However, I am usually very aware that something is going on in my body. I can feel when something is happening. Everybody has that capacity, but and it has to be practiced. People have to open themselves to that. This isn't very woo-woo. It's like when you take an aspirin, do you feel that aspirin has worked for you in a half an hour, or do you not feel it even 2 hours later? So that being said, that's my caveat there. I'd like to say that the product that was referred to me was Laminine. And the first couple of capsules I took, within a half an hour, I sat down and I said to myself, I have just felt a shift in my psycho-emotional well-being. Now, the interesting part is, and even you said it, there were days when you and I would talk on the phone and I didn't realize that I was experiencing some kind of a downturn in my psycho-emotional being at that particular moment. And sometimes you don't, but I felt this shift. It was a very positive, uplifting shift. This is me. I've also spoken with other people who tell me, well, that happened to me, but it didn't happen for a day or 2 or 5. And, that's fine because we all live in our own individual bodies. Which brings me to what exactly is Laminine. Laminine is simply unprogrammed light cells, and they're made up of a string of 22 amino acids that actually wake up our own stem cells. And then that's all it does. It's a catalyst product. Catalyst means it does something. What it does is it wakes up our stem cells. And stem cells, our own stem cells, then are programmed by God, the universe, whoever you want to believe in, to repair, rejuvenate, and rebuild whatever is going on in our body that needs that. Now, what I usually share with people is when somebody gets pregnant and their child starts growing in their body, that is the stem cells. That's the stem cell activity. It's actually making that child grow and putting all the limbs and everything together and all of the systems. And then the child is born, and then they think back, folks. They grow to toddler, and then before you know it, they're a preteen, and then they're a teenager, and then they're going to their high school graduation and college graduation, and then they're getting married. And I missed a few in there, but you get the idea. About in our early 30s, I'm told, our stem cells go into a state of not remission, but they kind of are like the bear that in the wintertime they go into the cave and they hibernate. And they really never, they figure that their job is done. Interestingly enough, I'd like everybody to flash backwards to the 1990s when there was all that big stuff about young women who were giving birth naturally, and they all wanted to save their babies' umbilical cords to save the blood, and what they were really aiming to do was save the stem cells. And there was a whole big furor about that in the medical community and every other community and the churches and the synagogues and everybody else, because it was kind of a yucky thing to be thinking about what were they going to do with them and stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, each one of us has a body. We live in a body. Each one of our bodies is equipped with our own stem cells that grew us to be what we are now. Laminine is this wonderful catalyst product that's so natural that simply wakes up our own stem cells, and it nourishes them, and it keeps nourishing them so they can rejuvenate and repair and rebuild whatever it is in our body that's gone wrong. So, in my case, they immediately went to my adrenal glands. And I will also tell you that you noticed within the week, I know that you called a mutual friend and you said, hey, what's up with RS? Something has shifted in her. So this is not my imagination. You didn't know that, but I know that because that person shared it with me. It wasn't only my imagination because other people were noticing. So I felt an immediate shift in my being. I was a little bit happier. I will tell you a funny story. About 3 months later, I was upstairs and ladies, you'll appreciate, remember your fat genes? Well, I was bursting out of my fat genes. That's pretty ugly. No matter what you weigh, it's pretty ugly when you're bursting out of your fat genes. I bent down to pick up my hairbrush. I had dropped it, and I was still wearing my fat jeans. And my fat jeans literally fell down to my knees. And I burst out laughing. This is 3 months on Laminine. And I burst out laughing, and I said, no wonder I've been walking around town hiking up these jeans, hiking them up, pulling them up. Everywhere I am, pulling them up. And I didn't realize I had actually lost 19 pounds.
Wow.
Out of the 21 pounds that I had gained over a year. It took 3 months.
And thank goodness you never dropped that brush while you were at synagogue.
Oh my gosh. Now, here's the most amazing thing. I've coined the phrase cortisol butter. You know, all of this happened with my adrenal glands in the shutdown because of stress. And stress and cortisol are a vicious circle. When you're stressed, your body starts producing and pumping excess cortisol. We need enough cortisol in our body to make things work. But when you have these large fluctuations, I think one of our doctors, and you either have or you will be doing another segment on Dr. Petrosino and how he talks about the study where cortisol is called the death hormone. Well, if I had gone on much longer, who knows how it would have really affected my body even more negatively. But instead, the Laminine started balancing out my cortisol levels, which in turn brought down my stress. And as I became de-stressed, all these other things started disappearing. And the cortisol butter, which was the fat, because cortisol attracts fat, it's one of the universal mysteries. When you have high cortisol fluctuations, it attracts fat. No matter what you eat, you could be living on water. You still will gain weight. It's the nature of cortisol and stress. And in 3 months, 19 pounds of cortisol butter just kind of melted off my body.
Well, that's amazing. You know, we're down to about the last 5 minutes of what we've got for this segment. What's been allotted for this show, but you know, we could really talk about this all day long, and RS could tell you stories. I can tell you stories. You know, we could have people dialing in and telling us stories. And it sounds to most people, if you're watching this for the first time, like Laminine is a cure-all. But in fact, Laminine doesn't cure anything. So we want to be really clear that what we're saying here isn't that this is a treatment, that this is a cure, that this is a remedy. What we're saying is that if you give your body what it needs, what your body had when you were in a fetal state and a adolescent state that began to decline from that point on, if you start giving that back to your body, doesn't it make sense that those undifferentiated stem cells, once they get activated, can begin to be programmed to, instead of treating symptoms, to begin repairing the cause? And that's what this is doing. You know, RS is talking about cortisol levels, and that's, you know, another entire show. We've done a previous show about that, but another entire show can be dedicated. And RS, if you're willing, we'll have you come back perhaps with Steve Petrosino and some others to talk about that and about the impact that cortisol has. What I want you guys to understand in these last 3 or 4 minutes is that what you have in your hands today is an opportunity of a lifetime. It's an opportunity for you to begin giving your body what it needs in balance. And it's one of the most simple protocols you'll ever try. When you begin on this program, you take 2 capsules in the morning and 2 capsules in the evening for 10 to 14 days. If you have some severe illnesses, we recommend that you do that for the entire first 30 days. And that's what we call loading dose. That's what's going to give your body everything that it needs to start this activation process. Remember that the disease that you're experiencing today is the end result of symptoms that accumulated and breakdowns in the systems that accumulated and imbalances in those amino acids and the their shortening of the telomeres as a result of those high cortisol levels. And so in order to repair that, we need to take some immediate and decisive action. People seldom question when they go to the doctor and the doctor throws 10 different prescriptions at them. But when we tell you that you need to start taking ownership in your body and start taking 2 of these capsules 2 to 3 times a day for the first 10 to 30 days, then all of a sudden they think that that's taking too much time for them. Your health, your life is worth so much more than that. And then thereafter, you adjust your dosage by working with your wellness advocate, by paying close attention to your body and what your body needs. You will find that perfect balance. And so if you are invited to watch this program today by one of our wellness advocates or by RS, they have a special website address that you can go to find more information. In fact, if they've embedded this on their webpage, you can actually get that information by simply going to the link that's usually found right below the video. In RS's case, it's going to be on her blog. Right below this video, you'll find all of her contact information. For our wellness advocates around the world, you'll be able to go to the website that they share with you so that you can find out more information about what this protocol could mean for you. If you happen to tune into this show on Google Hangouts Live, just sitting around on a Sunday afternoon looking for something interesting to watch, you'll find the web address at the bottom of this screen. That's eggoflife.com/road to wellness. I welcome you to get in touch with me there, or you can get in touch with me through YouTube and just ask me any questions that you've got. We're here to help you and answer any questions that you might have. And if you're looking to become part of a movement that allows you to begin to make a fortune by making a difference, then I invite you to get back with that person who shared this with you. And if you found it by chance, to get in touch with me, because we're looking for folks who are committed to health and wellness, so folks who are committed to creating better health for themselves and then sharing that with others around the world. And if you are one of those folks who are passionate about health and fitness, then there's a tremendous opportunity for you to prosper as well as getting your health back on track. RS, I am so thrilled that you spent some time with us on the program tonight. I'm wishing you all the best as you wrap up your second month of Silver Director qualifications. I have no questions that you're going to get there. And if there was anything you could say in 2 minutes to folks to kind of wrap up everything and give them a call to action, what would that be?
I would tell people that not to forget that they need to take their health and their wellness, that they have the ability to take their health and their wellness and fashion it any way that they want. I would also caution people that if they educate themselves properly, they will be able to listen to a physician if there is something that happens to go wrong with them, but they'll be able to marry that with the education that they have, and don't be afraid to be a seeker. You mentioned that when you and I are very passionate about wellness and health, and we're advocates, me because of my background and you because of yours. Most people aren't. But this is an aha moment in 2013, folks. We're all on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on some of the other things. Everybody's aware of Monsanto and what's going on in Syria and all over the world, in tornadoes in Texas. And what we need to do is we need to be responsible, make a commitment to ourselves, for ourselves and our family, to learn all we can and learn all the avenues that we can take to maintain our own health and wellness for ourselves and our family. So I encourage everybody to get back to Dr. Salvato, or you can visit my website or any of the other health and wellness advocates that are on our teams or other teams as well. And we encourage you to just learn everything you can about your own health and wellness, and don't be afraid to pick up the telephone and call one of us if you have any questions. We're not about selling people products. We're about ascertaining whether or not we can help you and teach you how you can grab hold of your own health and wellness and be the best possible and healthy you that you can be.
Thanks, RS. And thank you guys for taking the time today to tune in and to watch this program with us. And again, I encourage you guys, if you know somebody who suffers from chronic fatigue, somebody with diabetes or weight control issues, somebody with chronic pain, muscle stiffness, sleep disorders, somebody with Alzheimer's disease, neurological conditions, including Parkinson's and Lou Gehrig's disease, excuse me, I encourage you to share this video with them. You never know what dramatic impact you may have on somebody's life where they'll thank you the way that RS has and the way that I thank RS for sharing this product with me, because I'm absolutely convinced, and I'm sitting here to tell you, that I probably wouldn't be here today if it weren't for my getting started using this amazing natural protocol. I want to also say that, if you're taking a lot of pharmaceutical drugs, you may be afraid that you can't take Laminine, but Laminine is a whole food supplement. It's a functional food, and as a food supplement, that means that it's no different than the food that we eat every day. And you're allowed to eat your food that you eat every day. This isn't contraindicated with any kind of against any kind of prescriptions or any kind of other nutritional supplements. This is just adding a functional food to your diet, possibly for the first time in your life. That's going to make all the difference in the world when it comes to giving your body the best chance it has to do what the body was meant to do, and that's to heal and balance itself. So on behalf of all of us at the Abundant Life Network, and on behalf of RS and myself, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.